actually covers a conditional probability. And a conditional, just like that name says, when you have conditional, it just means some event happens with this specific condition in mind. So I like going back to the black one. Actually, let's do a different color. Let's do blue. So conditional probability. It's when you have an event is used, the probability is affected by the knowledge of other circumstances. So this is very similar to section 4.4 when we went into this notation. And we went through this just by understanding if events were dependent or independent. Conditional probability, it always represents dependent events. So something is happening in the case of another one. And it's always a matter of just recognizing the order of this. So A is the first event, and B is the second event. Whoops. So for these problems, you will have a specific wording that signifies when you have a conditional probability. It is actually what this one little vertical bar in the center means. And let me do a highlighter actually. I want something to be apparent. When you have this vertical bar, that is implied to be a given that. So this right here, it represents given that. And it is really your key word to know we are going to be tackling conditional probabilities here. So the main formula for this, a conditional probability of an event is a probability attained with the additional information that some other event has already occurred. And that goes back to what I mentioned in 4.4. You have some event that has already happened and it affected the probability of getting one other event. So the definition from here, it does look a little bit crazy. There is one where you don't really have to follow this. It's more of an intuitive way, which I'll teach you. But the proper definition is really, it is denotes, I have probability of event B given A. It denotes the conditional probability of event B occurring given that event A has already occurred or happened. And the proper way to find this probability is you divide the probability of the events A and B, both occurring, and then you divide it by the first event that happened. So this is the first event. And this is when both events occur. All right. And from here, this is the formal definition. Depending on what you have, especially if you're dealing with tables or the contingency tables where you have different outcomes occurring, you don't have to follow this formula. Instead, what you can do is you can use an intuitive approach, which I will show you guys. But this is our formal definition. The main keyword I want y'all to emphasize with this technique is when you have the keyword given that. Given that represents, we will use conditional probability.